noticing a very 90s sounding musical style, kind of like what I heard with Live, Throwing Copper. There's similar chord progressions as well. So far, my favorite song has been Black, and it's because I caught myself really moving my head and enjoying it. It's much darker, and combined with the light, airy sound of her voice and the intensity of her lyrics, I think it's a really good contrast. Also, Home is a really trancey, meditative track that I found myself kind of lost in. There's also Mercy, which is really similar to the second last song on her previous album, except it's, I would argue, musically a step up from what she was doing before. Her third album, Fumbling Towards Ecstasy, is a lot, it feels more mature, and it's got like a richness and continuity to it that I didn't hear in the first one. And I also don't hear like this need to be trendy. And I really enjoyed the song Wait, so I might want to listen to that one again. Listening to the intro to Elsewhere, and I really like it. I just think it's more compelling than some of the other intros. Her song Fumbling Towards Ecstasy on this album, I think is really good. It was playing in the background, and I had to stop when I heard her say, "I won't fear love." And she also talks about not denying your feelings, which is a really important message that I also happen to share in my own music. Now I'm listening to an album called Rarities, B-Sides, and Other Stuff, which is a compilation of tracks that McLaughlin worked on for different soundtracks, as well as some remixes and re-recordings. Her vocals, which are really like airy and soft, on a song like Dear God, which is very aggressive, I think is a really cool sound. The track Gloomy Sunday really reminds me of Angèle. A lot of interesting overdubbing with the song For a Winter's Night. Okay, now I'm listening to her fourth album, her third studio album called Surfacing. Already, the first track, Mystery, is way more commercial, way more accessible, and combined with her esoteric lyrics, I actually think it's quite good. Her song Sweet Surrender is also really interesting. I'm noticing that the intros are a lot more interesting to hear. They're a lot more commercial. Same with the song Ada. It's similar to the first song on the album. Really enjoying the track Witness as well. A lot slower and soulful, but still catchy and not overwhelming. Then, of course, we have the track Angel, which is a very family-friendly, nourishing, nurturing song. And what I like about it is that it's timeless and simple because of the instrumentation in it. When using computers to create music, there are a lot of different ways to do that. One of the ways is to use a synthesizer, like an analog synthesizer, where the sound that you're hearing is coming straight from the wall. Another thing you can do is use a computer to record instruments, and then you can manipulate or play with those recordings. But there's a concept called a virtual instrument. And a virtual instrument is not like when I hit the keyboard and I'm just like making certain sounds, but those sounds are like in the keyboard itself. A virtual instrument is a really, really in-depth detailed way of recreating an instrument that exists in the physical analog world, but you're recreating it in a way that it can, those sounds can be played using your computer and a MIDI keyboard. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you really want to hear the sound of a church organ, but you don't have the equipment to go record a church organ. So you pull out your keyboard and you start playing using some organ sounds, and you notice it just sounds fake. It doesn't sound like a real church organ. So you can purchase or download a virtual instrument of a church organ, and when you put your fingers on the keys, suddenly it sounds like you have a real church organ, and it's highly detailed and quite impressive. And the difference between that virtual instrument and what you were creating beforehand is that the virtual instrument was actually very likely recorded with a lot of detail by a team of developers. So they recorded every single note of that church organ. They recorded the sounds of the keys being hit. They recorded the nuances, like what happens when you hit the pedal of the church organ. And the result is that you end up being able to create a really dynamic and beautiful, rich timbre church organ part just using your computer. The piece of technology that I want to cover in my report is a virtual instrument library called Keyscape. And it is a set of very rare and special keyboard sounds that have been expertly recorded and bundled together so that you can record parts on these very rare and beautiful sounds without having to leave your computer or your studio. You may not know this, but there are loads of different types of keyboards. There's pianos, there's Rhodes, which is the more 60s style electric piano. There are organs, there are xylophones, there are children's pianos, and this particular piece of software has 36 different instrument models. And an instrument model is a specific instrument that it is designed to sound like, which means that to create this software, which the developers, they say it took them 10 years to do this, they had to find these instruments, they had to tune these instruments, replicate these instruments, set up these instruments in a way that they were able to record them. And then on top of that, once they had all the recordings that they wanted, they additionally had to modify and program this virtual instrument set so that you could play a short note or play a long note or play a loud note or a soft note with like nuanced dynamic range. Another thing that they included is pedal noise, mechanical noise, and the types of audio behavior that you would hear if you were actually playing that instrument in person, as a way of creating a more authentic sound as a result. There's 36 different instrument models, but they also have some of the instruments that they have modeled include a Wurlitzer organ. It includes a clavichord. It includes a toy piano, a Glock, harpsichord, and even a custom upright, even a wing upright piano. So just very unusual instruments that you maybe wouldn't get the opportunity to really hear all of these different sounds, and now you can not only get them, but get them at an exceptionally high quality. There are also patches called hybrid duo patches, where you can blend two of these instrument models together to create a unique sound as well. They've created this piece of software with an interface that they hoped would be intuitive, where you can transform the sounds, you can put creative effects on the sounds, and you can essentially try to make the sound your own. So that way your piano playing and my piano playing on the same model aren't going to sound the same unless we have exactly the same effects. And that's very unlikely. The interface is pretty easy to use. Each tone, or I guess each sound, So even though there are 36 instrument models, there's actually 500 different sounds, because each instrument model has, different options. So one example is you could have different types of playing on the same instrument, or different pedals being pressed down on the same instrument. And then the user interface is pretty easy, because you have this big, beautiful, I don't think it's a photo, I think it's a digital image of the instrument. And then below the digital image of the instrument, you have the controls, where you can mix, you can adjust the tone, you can adjust the mechanical noises, and you can add effects. And the knobs that you get at the bottom change based on the instrument that you're playing. For the most part, they're consistent, but an example is if you play the electric grand tone, you can get tape compression, versus if you're playing the duo LA piano, you can hit the denoise button as well. So looking online, the only downside I saw is that this instrument takes up a lot of RAM, so you wouldn't really be able to use it for playing live, or that would be really difficult. And then also, just my own personal reflection on this, I am not an audiophile. I'm very interested in songs and compositions, but I have not had a lot of training when it comes to listening for different tones and timbres and personality and colors of different instruments. So learning how to hear the quality in a product like this is new to me. However, even though I was personally worried that I wouldn't be able to hear the quality in this product, it was quite clear to me that it sounded really warm and rich, and there was an authenticity in the recording that I thought was really interesting, that even on a pair of ears like mine, which aren't trained, I was still able to notice that this was definitely a high quality virtual instrument. So if you're looking to splurge, this is an option for you.